Welcome to the August episode of Amiga Ireland. I'm Irla.
I'm Rob.
And I'm Luke.
And in today's episode, meet the new key, same as the old key. We talk to a member of a 3D modelling project which will break down damaged retro plastic parts and reprint them back into their original form using the same materials.
We also have a little look at the mysterious set patch command.
And a little bit of a mail client for Mo4S, Iris.
All that and more. We've got games, news, music and advice. Before we get to all that, guys, how have you been? It's been a month.
Yeah, as usual, flown by. A blur of dirty nappies and work and nerdiness when I can. But I've been working on a few different PCBs, some top secret projects, some not so top secret projects, and some custom commissions like an ATX control board for an A4000 that I'm restoring at the moment, basically to allow you to software shut down the machine and stuff like that. Little bits, keeping me busy. That's about it for me.
Doing a lot more Amiga related stuff than I have. We've been away travelling. I've been on holidays in Connemara in the wild wests of Ireland. It's been really nice. We went to a couple of Gaeltacht areas and a few really scenic areas, some nice lovely walks around. There's a place called Ballinahinch or Ballinahincha. There's a castle there and some incredible walks. They have planted all kinds of things. The walks go on for, miles, and there's bridges, and it's probably my favourite place in Ireland at the moment to go for a walk. And the kids love it too, and they don't annoy you while you're walking, taking in the beauty around you. So it's pretty good. How about you, Luke?
I've just started my holidays this week, so I'm trying to catch up with a lot of things. I've got similar things just like Rob. Regarding nappies. Apart from that, busy with RetroReady.1, and I think that's that. That's the majority of my life and my month, actually.
I actually almost forgot. I haven't got it yet, but I've bought myself some new toys, and I'm hoping to be very busy with them in the next month. So basically I've bought various bits I need for making a small desktop mill, so I'll be able to manufacture my own plastic and metal parts.
Oh, that's great then.
Yeah. So hopefully, it's only simple stuff, but for making little brackets and stuff, it's a nice alternative to 3D printing, because you can machine out of a solid piece of metal and that. So I'm really excited about that. Spending money goes on the list of things I've been doing this month.
Oh, great. That's really great.
One other thing, actually. So, for anyone who's wondering when the tickets are going to go on sale for Amiga Ireland, at some point in September they'll go on. We just want to pin down as many things as we can before we put it up so people know what they're coming for. But the venue is already booked and paid for. So, all of the information that's on the website, about the location, all that is current, it's accurate. We're just going to wait till we have as much of the schedule pinned down so that people who want to come for one day might know what's on that day, not the other day and stuff like that. Right, let's go on to the news. Tiny Aros is a new distro released by Salvatore. It's a 615 megabyte ISO which will work on emulation or harder, just like Aros. It's Aros in a retro style and without Icaros desktop.
Lots of Aros related news this month. Aeros, AEROS 4.3 has been released, and it's like a hybrid version of Aros and Linux. And so it leverages the Linux drivers and stuff and runs pretty much transparently on a Raspberry Pi. So if you have used that before, you know what it's about, but it's definitely worth a look.
And the Loo is a simple spreadsheet application which firstly started as an Excel and OpenOffice viewer, and then transformed into something bigger. Might be very useful, to be honest, And it's available for all Amiga flavors.
And also in the news at the moment, Best WB 1.2 has been released. This is similar to Better WB, and according to the author, it's an extension to Amiga OS 3.1.4. So in addition to the update of some of the components, this new release 1.2 of Best WB has things like WB Dock, Pic Show, Image Mount, as well as several other ready-made color sets, and there's a lot more included, and you can read the full feature list at the website, and we have the link for you here in the show notes.
NetSurf is a browser that's available on almost anything. This is version 3.9. It was released for Amiga OS 4. There is a 68K version. I'm not sure if that's been updated as well. But it's a very heavy browser anyway, so in 68K terms, but it's kind of the most modern option there is for the classics. So it's really only like Vampire emulation or 060 people should worry about that. But so it's an updated version anyway. And I know it is popular amongst the OS4 people as an alternative to Odyssey.
Iris is a very nice mail client for MorphOS. It's beta 62, so it's been progressing really nicely thanks to Yata, who is one of the developers of MorphOS. He's a core developer, actually. It's mainly bug fixes and features relating to IMAP. And attachments have been improved. The link will be in the show notes, so if you're a MorphOS user, why not have a look?
15 years ago, can you remember where we were at or where Amiga was at?
Well, I was still using mine, but no one else was. Everyone else was chucking them in the bin.
I think 15 years ago, I was really considering getting back to Amiga. That was the time when I was seriously thinking about Amiga and thinking what's going on with it? Why don't I have a look? And this is where it all starts again. Yeah, that was 15 years ago.
Well, 15 years ago, Amiga Kit began operation, and they're celebrating their 15th year in operation in July just gone. So they have seen a lot of change, I think, over those 15 years. So congrats on another 15 years, T, in the future, I hope.
Absolutely. Well done.
Congratulations.
There aren't too many Amiga companies gone that long. Okay, more Eros news, and Eros 1 version 1.1 has been released, and this is a new distro that's aimed at x86 machines. This is another includes everything kind of distro. So I haven't had a look at it myself, but definitely if you're an Eros fan, it'd be worth a look, and should work in a virtual machine as well.
Apollo Gold Core 2.12 release candidate has been released, mainly bug fixes and perhaps some new features. Why not have a look?
And Romulator for Amiga 500 and Amiga 600 allows ROM files to be read from SD card. And this device is placed in place of your original ROM in your Amiga. So you swap out your ROM chip, you put this device in, and you can put in SD cards with different ROM files on it. This is by Kipper2K. It's called Romulator. It's also by Mikester, Solid Core, Indigo Lemon and Free Milk, and it took 5 months of beta boards and fixes to get it complete. So congrats to the guys, and I'm looking forward to ordering one of these myself. The learning process, they say, has inspired the team to develop 2 more products which will come in the future. The retail price of this is expected to be $79 USD, and they will debut on the Amiga on the Lake store in the USA, and I'm assuming it'll come to Europe after that.
That's an awesome bit of hardware, and Indigo Lemon is one of the Scottish guys here, and he had kept that a secret. So I knew something was going on, but I didn't know quite the scope of it. It's an impressive project, and what it actually does. It's kind of like GoTech for ROMs, which I think is phenomenal. And the thing is as well that the plan is, I don't know if this is actually implemented yet, but the plan is that it can do things like talk to a GoTech and see, this is a game loading that needs the 1.3 ROM, so I will use the 1.3 ROM, and be able to switch dynamically like that, which is, to be honest, ridiculous kind of stuff. But a very impressive bit of hardware, and if at the moment it is only for the 16 bits, so the 500 and 600, but there is talk of a version for the 1200, and if that sounds interesting to you, you should follow the link we have there, and let Kipper2K know that there's interest, because he's kind of will I, won't I, and he doesn't want to sort of spend all the time on it unless it's unless there's a lot of interest, because for a lot of people the 500 and 600 are more traditionally ROM switchable, whereas the 1200 is more sort of a WHD load machine and doesn't need to worry about that. But if you're interested in that for your 1200, let Kipper know, and it's a fascinating project. It's really and it was kept under wraps because the way things are in the Amiga world, someone announces a project and then it gets delayed or cancelled, and then they're the worst in the world.
Yeah, well done for keeping it under wraps, fellas.
So Kipper isn't going to fall for that one again. So fair play to him. Best of luck with it. Now, the source code for Deluxe Paint 1 is now on GitHub, including the manual. Now, this source code was released a while ago, but now it's sort of all in very GitHub format, and you can browse it in the same way, and it's Yeah, probably more just basically for historical interest rather than anything particularly useful because, you're not going to make it anywhere near the feature rich level of the later Deluxe Paint versions. But, as the sort of the basically historical software that became the selling point of the Amiga and, EA's first massive product, it's definitely, fascinating.
Amiga OS 3.1.4.1 has been released with mostly bug fixes, but a little bit of features also. That's a long number, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's a funny one, yeah.
Very funny.
Looks like an IP address.
Yeah.
People are saying that they're going for pi, so it'll be 3.1.4.1.5.9.
That's a great one, yeah, agree.
It's
I'm talking about that.
They have the logic to it, but it's kind of it's a weird way of doing it. The 3 numbers I can understand, and it is a minor update to a 3-number version, so I would have gone with 3.1.5 to be honest, but there you go. But yeah, so this is a software only update. It's basically just a single floppy disk full of a few updated components that copy in over the existing ones, and you just update it once, and away you go. You've got the fixes, and that's it.
And the set patch does the job.
Yes,
I just had to do
absolutely.
It. Yeah, we'll be talking about the set patch later on as well. So
yes.
Yeah.
Cool. So we'll probably mention that again. So the last bit of news from me anyway, the Checkmate 1500 Plus cases have started shipping. So we've had a couple of unboxings on YouTube in the last couple of days, and they really look the business, and everyone seems to be very impressed with them, and taking them out of the boxes and poking them and prodding them and leaning on them, and so far everyone seems to be quite impressed. It's looking very impressive now.
Yeah, I've seen some, interesting videos and pictures all over the internet. So people are, mostly very happy and have been praising the quality. And I remember that you've been involved in that project as well, Rob.
Yeah, I did the boards and the internal cables for them. So that was
great job.
That was fun. Possibly not finished yet either, because there are always little things that crop up. But
as always.
But yeah, it's definitely an interesting project, and hopefully that won't be the last of these kind of projects that we see.
Well, in the museum, the Computer Museum in Galway, a new project has been underway for a while, and we've just seen the first fruits of the early stages of it. I got to talk with Owen Jordan in the museum about this project, and it's 3D printing of parts for retro computers is what they've been doing at the moment. But the brilliant thing about it is what they do is they take the broken part and melt down the plastic and use that same plastic to reprint the new one. It's absolutely brilliant, and the cover image for this episode is a key from a Commodore 64. Now, it has the shape, it looks a bit rough around the edges, but it wasn't supposed to be any more than that. They're aiming to, make adequate substitutes, that can be put in to kind of remove the need to order new parts when things break.
Yeah, pretty interesting.
It's impressive. I have heard of people grinding up Lego blocks, believe it or not, and printing with them. It's a similar idea. This is an impressive thing.
So let's have a listen to a little chat we had with Owen Jordan.
I volunteer at the museum with Brendan Smith. What we're planning to get set up in the museum is 3D scanning, 3D printing set up where we can take parts of the old computers that have broken, break them down, hopefully print filament that can produce the exact same item again from equal or less of the material that it was made.
Less of the material, how is that possible?
So with 3D printing, the structure isn't solid, so we've got a honeycomb on the inside of the printed item, so that hollow piece we can use again for the next piece. Okay. So we're assuming that the types of plastics that we're going to be using will be thermoplastics, and that means that we'll be able to melt the plastic and reform it again. Okay. Fortunately, most of the items in the museum are ABS from what we can tell so far. Yeah.
And the Amiga is ABS plastic.
Yeah, I saw just tonight as well that Matt from the Insight Centre had actually printed one of the keys for your Amiga, so that's quite cool. So
yeah. Okay, so it sounds like a very ambitious project. What stage are you at the moment?
Right now we've got the scanner set up. Brendan's son, Dara, was getting the scanner set up, and we got a license for the proprietary software. It's called Scanect, which uses an Xbox 360 camera to run the scan. We managed to scan him and print him, scanned and printed a miniature pet. There's 3 lenses on the Kinect. One of them's a camera, so you can get the textures from that. Then you've got the other 2 lenses. One is the infrared beam and then the detector. It builds up a point cloud and forms the model from that. You can do further processing with the software then to simplify the model or to make it watertight. A 4-step process that anybody could do. Thankfully, one of your members, Philip, is helping us to get it to an easier to use stage as well, so we'll be hopefully able to get it self-leveling, so we won't have to go through all of the tweaking with it, so hopefully anybody in the museum will be able to run that themselves.
And Owen went on to talk about further ambitions for the project in terms of conservation and the environment.
I spoke about 3D printing and recycling during a talk that I gave at the Connemara Greenway, which we're seeking to get set up. I got talking to Vincent Gallagher after this, and he told me about a project that they had in Ballymun called the Recycling Centre, which is funded by the government, and they take in old paint and they'll give that back out to who needs it, or they'll repurpose furniture. Just found it very interesting, and Vincent himself was planning to get a co-op set up which would do similar in Galway and hopefully build a template that other counties could work from. Anybody in the community who wants to set this up themselves. I was just thinking of what kind of material we would be able to get cheaply, and that would either end up in landfill or in the atmosphere. Just the first thing that popped into my mind was ducting of cars, which is a consistent colour. It's all black, mostly ABS as well, which is the thermoplastics again. So it's pretty much has no value, because if you go to a breaker's yard, people are looking for alternators or, bits and pieces. Ducting would be probably the last thing that I would imagine somebody would go to replace in their car. Okay, we should be able to get this for quite cheap or free, melt it down and build filament for resale to universities or prototyping units either in Ireland or possibly exports to other countries that would be getting it from China otherwise. There's 5 units altogether in my own part. It will be just to get an ABS set up and a PLA setup that can run for a number of months, and we can try and figure out what kind of numbers we can get. Can we get a kilo an hour? How much does it cost us to process that plastic? Just work out how viable it is as a business. If it needs to be scaled up further to make it more viable. The ultimate goal is to generate employment in places that need it and to reduce the amount of landfill, because everybody needs to do their part to help prevent our impact on climate change. It's not a lofty idea anymore. Everyone has accepted that climate change is a fact, and we need to kind of do our own bit locally to try and lessen our impact.
That's right, yeah.
And if you can create employment while doing that, then if we can prove the concept for each of the 5 units, that will be the start of a template that other counties or communities could work from and build on.
Well, best of luck with it, Owen, and thanks for talking to me.
Thanks for having me.
So there we go.
Yeah, I was always thinking, how do people actually put those parts on the screens of their monitors? You want to recreate something, you want to recreate, a cover for 3D printing, or just like they've been doing, a key, put it into a program. So I was always wondering, how do they actually scan it?
Yeah.
Well, we have a 3D scanner in work.
Oh, cool. Sorted.
There are different. You can get some that are kind of fairly rough, but there are some, pretty serious 3D scanners, and there are companies where you can go and pay them a certain amount of money, and they'll print a little mini you. So you go and stand in a scanner, and it'll do a scan of your body, and you can get yourself on a keyring.
Oh,
which is bizarre. But the old way of doing it, nowadays it uses sort of a laser sweep of you, but in the olden days, it was basically, you used a sort of a 3D mouse, 3D pencil kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And what that would do was it was basically articulated and had 3 or 4 joints on a big long gangly arm. And so as you moved it, it could tell what angle every joint was at and could calculate where in 3D space the tip was.
Yeah, okay.
So you draw the edges of it, and then you've got your edges in your 3D program.
Okay. That's absolutely awesome.
Okay, let's move on to the gaming section. Landfill, speaking of rubbish in the environment, is a new Amiga game out now for 1 megabyte Amigas. It's a fun and easy to pick up game. It's kind of like Bejeweled, except you're gathering rubbish on the beach and matching the items together to make them disappear. Great idea and a very topical theme.
A review of Skill Grid on Epsilon's Amiga blog is a very good blog, by the way. But Skill Grid is a vertical shooter that for AGA Amigas, and it looks very, very good and slight puzzly thing to it. Definitely worth a look, and you should check it out. Good review.
Mr. Stur is an adventure about collecting gold. We don't get a lot of news items for OS4, but this one is, and it's a really nice and child-friendly jump and run game, so why not have a look?
Runaway is a remake of the LCD game of the same name, originally by Gakken. The purpose of the game is to help the prisoner escape from the cell while avoiding the patrolling guards and the constant moving searchlight. And before escaping, the prisoner must break through a fence before jumping in to free them. So this game was made at Hollywood. Testing on AmiKit shows that it consumes about 16 megabytes of free RAM, according to the authors, upon starting. It's available for Morphos, OS4, ROS. It's by Annbjorn Myron. Oh, very cool throwback to those LCD games. I'd completely forgotten about those. They were cool.
Sure, I've got a few of them in the attic at home. Must dig them up. There's another OS4 release, Los Chinos. Now, I haven't tried this. I'm going to have to try this later on now and see what it's about. But it seems to be a sort of a guess how many fingers I'm holding up. I don't really know. Basically a kid's game made with Hollywood. So it looks nice and polished to try it out later on and see what it's all about.
Pong 4K has been released to Aminet. It's a rendition of a Pong, of the classic Pong, but it's been made in a very stylish cyberpunk way. It's a really great game, and even 4 players can play simultaneously on one Amiga.
That'll be a new and a good party game.
Very good party game, and it's really stylish and really nice, with nice graphics and playability.
It looks lovely, yeah.
Yeah.
And last one in the game section, the Amiga game Jet Hunt AGA by Rob Coagulus Hewitt is available. Actually, it's got fantastic music when I was watching it. It's very like Hero on the C64. If you remember that one, your character has to jetpack their way down passages to rescue someone on each level. That's another nice release for you to check out. And the link, we have the AbbeyMe link here in our show notes. That's the end of the games. Let's move on to discoveries. 10,000 Pro Tracker compatible tunes are available in a 1.8 gigabyte pack, and I discovered this on a website called grogon.com. Now, I mentioned another pack previously, and there is a little bit of overlap, but actually there's quite a lot of unique stuff in this, so this is worth checking out.
A hell of a lot of music in Pro Tracker format.
You need a second life to listen all to that, or to even browse through that.
That's the plan, Luke. Coming back from
Please do.
Reactor.com has a very good crash course on Amiga assembly programming, if you wanted to get into that. So this is something I've done a little bit, but I wouldn't be proficient, let's say. This and another couple of guides are very good, very nice approach to it, and untechnical as assembly can be, I suppose, is a way to describe it. If you just want a taster and you want to see what it's all about, program the bare metal. It's a great place to start. And
another coding related discovery I made in the last month. This is the AREX Getting Started guide. And if you want to do some entry level programming on the Amiga, that's not too complicated. And also with an option to interact with other applications, which is kind of cool too. You know, you can pull information out of certain applications, and interact with them. You could give this a try.
And if you're a tinkerer, for example, just like Rob, then you might want to go to www.amigawiki.org, when you will find schematics of Amiga PCBs for different models and revisions. Pretty useful stuff, probably, I think.
This is a favourite site of mine.
Oh, there you go. So I wasn't mistaken.
No. For many years now, I was using an old sort of set of scanned or faxed schematics for all the Amigas.
Okay.
Because that was all you could get freely available on the internet,
Okay.
And that was what I was using for 10, 15 years. But this is someone in Germany has recreated all of these, all of the schematics in vector format. So this is really fantastic because it means you can search for a
job.
signal name. You can, you can zoom in on them, and because the originals, you zoom in, it's hard. Is that an OR6 or an OR8, or is it it's sometimes very hard to see. And is that a junction, or is it just a bit of dirt on the manual? So it's this is brilliant, and it's invaluable if you're into your hardware repairs or tinkering, as you say.
I think you might have given me that link before, Rob, not in the recent.
Quite possibly, yeah. It's a godsend.
A discovery of mine is a kind of documented famous Amiga uses. These are over on AmigaReport.com. There are kind of recorded uses of it on ABC television, in athletics, award ceremonies, on cable television, in corporate environments, on HBO, in association with IBM, in kiosks, movies that have featured the Amiga. Times it's been seen on MTV. There's Billy Idol there, Rick Finn, Todd Rundgren, ZZ Top, the Bee Gees. So these are uses or associations, and there's a lot more on the list. That's not even half the list, and each of those are just headings with entries under them. So that's worth taking a look. I'm sure there'll be a few surprises for you there.
And we've got another hardware discovery. This time it's an Amiga PCB Explorer. Is it some sort of a related stuff to the previous one?
It is. This is another favorite of mine, and the two go hand in hand, you see. So basically the schematics it's a diagram of how all the parts are connected, whereas AmigaPCB.org is an actual interactive image of the Amiga boards, where you can click on the signal and see where it goes on the board. And this is amazing for repairing boards that have been damaged by leaky batteries, leaky capacitors, that kind of thing. And another godsend, and another, this guy has a few, and he keeps on adding more boards, or every so often he adds a board for a new model and stuff. So not everything's covered, because this is based on there being the CAD files for the board still existing, and a lot of them are either too old for that, or just don't exist. So as people are recreating the CAD files, they're being added to this as well. But this guy, he's done phenomenal work to make this website. You should see it, even if you don't have any interest in it. Just to click around on it and see where these signals go, and it's amazing the work that's gone into it. Very, very clever. And yeah, like I say, invaluable for repairs, because, you can see where your traces are supposed to go and check them with your multimeter and say, oh, that's not working, so better repair that one. And it makes the job of cleaning up a battery leaked Amiga 2000 or Amiga 500, for example, 500 plus, very, very easy.
We have a Amiga 500 to examine in the museum, actually. Alessandro's machine, he's having some funny behaviour on his ports, so I might actually use this. If it gives advice on what to test for, that would be great.
It's not so much it gives advice, but if you're suspicious of a signal, you click it and it'll show you where the other end of it is, if you like.
I get you. And the paths, is it?
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, and it'll highlight, and you can highlight a bunch of them, and it highlights them in different colours and all that. It's very clever. But as I was saying, sorry, the 500 isn't on it. The 500 plus is. So if you're lucky enough and it's a revision 8 500, it'll be more or less the same board. But other than that, you want to take it with a little pinch of salt, because the differences might be a bit more significant.
I think this is a revision 5 we're talking about in the museum, but
yeah. So that has even more changes.
Yeah, that's
than
right.
the common revision 6. Fun stuff. But but the schematics will be there. Actually, no, the schematics aren't on the other website either for the revision 5. Well, use them as a guide, but just bear in mind that some things might have another reason for not matching up.
The last discovery in this section, Python support for Amiga exists and is a thing. Very surprised. When we interviewed Darren Glenn from Bambi Amiga, we found out that PHP, you can run, a web server that supports PHP on an Amiga. I do need to run a command. The Internet Archive, archive.org, have an uploader that you can script and automate, uploads. And it does work from the terminal on Ubuntu here, so I'm going to give it a go on Amiga, and if it does, I'll make a little video or a blog post about it.
That's awesome. And it's actually, Python was included with OS4. So, sort of because AREX is sort of, it's still the old AREX. and wonderful and all as it is, and I love ARX, it's kind of, it can never really be updated because they don't have the source and the license and all that. They're all sorts of problems. So basically, it kind of can't be updated. So what OS4 has is it has ARX, but it also has Python with ARX gateways. So you can write an ARX program in Python if you like, and communicate with the applications through it that way. So I think this might actually be a backport from the OS4 version. I don't know, but I saw that it was knocking around for OS3, and well, it's great because there's so much stuff out there that's really useful with Python.
Excellent. Okay, let's move on to events. So 2 upcoming events at the moment. I'll take the first one. AmiJam 2019 with Trevor Dickinson is happening in Alberta in Canada. This is on August the 10th, 2019. Admission is free. It's an Amiga show, but all platforms are welcome, they say on the website. So yeah, have fun, guys. And my Trevor, glad to see you're still globetrotting to Amiga events.
The other one is the Commodore Vegas Expo. It starts on the 10th of August, and the admission fee is €25. More information you can find on commodore.com.
Right, and that's the event news. Of course, there is news for the Amiga Ireland event. That next month, the tickets will go live on sale, and we'll have more info for you then. And let's move on to Ask Amiga.
Okay, so I was just going to talk a little bit about SetPatch. Now, there's a question a little while ago on the Retro Computing Stack Exchange about SetPatch and what patches does it apply. So basically, a little bit of the background on this is that we all know the Amiga has part of the OS, a big part of the OS in the ROM, the Kickstart ROMs, and that's great because all these functions are there. You need very little on your disk to actually have a fully functioning OS, or to access all these routines for accessing drives, accessing graphics. All that stuff is all there in ROM. But the problem with that is that if there's a bug found after it's been released, that you end up, it's a semi-permanent thing because you have to change physical chips in your computer to fix it. So what SetPatch does is it's you may have seen it if you've ever messed around with your startup scripts, but it's one of the first commands that the Amiga runs when it starts, and it basically takes a lot of fixes and applies them to the Kickstart. Now, how it does that is a part of how it does that is down to just how lovely and organized the Amiga OS is. So any module or any part of the Kickstart that hasn't been used yet, which will be most of it because this is the first thing to load, can be basically just replaced with a disk-loaded version. So SetPatch can put a brand new version of most parts of the OS into memory, and then you just use that instead of the one that's in ROM. So it effectively just sort of replaces chunks of Kickstart. It can also apply certain patches to parts that are already running, but there's a limit to that. It depends on exactly what the part is and how easy that is to do. So it can't do things like replace the let's say the SCSI.device driver, which is with the infamous 4 gigabyte limit on it. So it can't actually do that without while it's actually running, because it is using it as SetPatch itself is loaded through that driver quite likely. So there are some things it can't do, but basically that's what it does. So it's been there since the very, very start. It's like Kickstart 1. I can't remember if it was very, very start, but definitely for 1.3 had SetPatch, and ever since then it has been used to update the core OS components. So at a very, very low level, that's what it does. OS2 is included, and it added, it had quite a big list of things for OS2, because what happened was as they found problems, they would release newer versions of SetPatch, and you could actually get SetPatch on disk, and it would be a newer version than what you had in your computer. And then this would, you could copy it to your hard drive, and then you've got your updates installed already, and it worked very well. And in OS3, setpatch also enables AGA modes. So what happens is on AGA Amigas, when they boot, they actually boot in emulating an ECS Amiga, in the ECS chipset. So the AGA registers and all that are disabled in the chips, in the hardware at a hardware level, and they basically act just like the ECS chipset. So you can't access, without setpatch, you might notice you can't access your 256 color modes. Things will look a bit weird, and your high resolution screen modes might not be there, and certain things like Deluxe Paint and stuff like that won't have all your colors available. So it's actually quite important, especially for OS3 machines, to run setpatch and to run a setpatch version for OS3, because obviously the OS2 versions don't know about AGA. But like that, there'd be a version that came with the OS3 discs, but there are newer versions available, that you can download from Aminet, I think, and from various places that that are newer than the disc-based versions and that fix other problems that have been found since the discs were released. Then when things got to OS 3.5 kind of time, basically most of the ROM had to be replaced, and there were no new ROMs released for OS 3.5 or 3.9. So setpatch had to basically replace the entire ROM effectively. And so even what it was doing was it was replacing even parts that couldn't be replaced while they were running, like the SCSI driver and like expansion library and things like that that actually deal with initializing the hardware. So this is where a reboot came from. So setpatch would load in the new ROM image basically, or load in all the parts of the new ROM, and then your machine would reboot, and then it was as if it had this new ROM built in, just at the expense of a bit of memory. So that's why 3.5 and 3.9 have this double reboot thing. And so that was quite a heavy setpatch, and it was essentially loading an entire new OS. But now 3.1.4 has dialed that back a bit, and the replacing entire modules section of setpatch has been taken out. So setpatch is back to doing sort of the minimal kind of small patches to already running items, and sort of setting things like copyright notices and turning on AGA and stuff like that. And then the loading of entire sections of Kickstart has been put into a separate command called load module. So now you've got these two commands at the start of at the start of your startup scripts: load module, which loads in big chunks, and setpatch, which sort of fixes the already loaded stuff. So so it kind of keeps things a little bit more modular, I suppose, because load module can do some pretty clever things by we're loading your own modules as such. So you can download different SCSI drivers. You can I think there are ways of making it load in USB drivers and things like that. So there are a lot of cool stuff you can do with it that when it's done that way, and you don't need to have a new setpatch each time. So that's basically it. But to answer the original question, like what patches does it apply? Essentially, it depends on what version of setpatch you have and how new it is, and that's it, and what version of the OS it corresponds with. So if you type setpatch at the command prompt, it will list everything that has already been installed. So you can run it again if you like. So just open a shell window when your system's already running, type setpatch, and it will give you a list of everything that's done. And it's as simple as that. And so on 3.9, this list will be quite a big list. But on the other versions, it'll be, a smaller list, but it's sometimes quite interesting to see what it's actually done.
I thought setpatch applied a different patch. So setpatch actually is the patch, depending on the version. No. For
3.5 and 3.9, it does load in other stuff as well, but generally it contains all the patches that are applied.
Right, we're coming up to the end of the show. Just moving on now to online activity. The top tweet this month was our tweet about the Peter Mulholland interview, and our top Facebook post was by James Whelan, which was a question about Zipstick refurbishment and some issues he was coming across there. So thanks to Dan, Michael, Seamus and Steve for helping out. And by email, we've been contacted by a few people. So first of all, hi to Gary. Thanks so much for the kind words and donation, Gary. Really appreciate it. Gary's been working his way through the entire podcast archive, and he sent a few euro our way to cover the server fees for his passage.
Thanks very much.
So that was very thoughtful, and I hope you're still with us when you get through all those, Gary. Hi also to Colin in Galway, who's been listening faithfully for the last while. He found the last episode very interesting, and he's actually going to go back and listen to it again because there's so much information in it, so much interesting information. So thanks, Colin, and we'll be meeting Colin soon in person. We've got another review on iTunes, so thanks to The Real Father Christmas, whoever you are. I really appreciate the review. Thank you, The Real Father Christmas. And finally, hi to Graham Vebke, who is coming from Sydney to Amiga Ireland 2020. He's in Sydney and he's got a 3-hour commute to work, so the podcasts are kind of crucial. Graham has booked his hotel for the event in Ireland in January, Amiga Ireland. Nice few entries in the mailbag this month. Finally, an online activity. We've got some new members in the Facebook group.
Good Dave Sally, Mario Grande, and Petar Vujovic.
Kim Renee Jensen and Claes Norin.
Kay Andre, David Snape, and Andy Wilkinson. Hi to everybody, you're all welcome. And hi and welcome to all our new followers on Twitter as well, actually, while we're at it. So until next time.
Music was by Virtual Dimension and by your guy Ollie.
Please leave us a review wherever you find us and wherever you listen to us, because it's great to get the feedback.
Thank you.
We're going to play out with the song of the month. This time is, I think this is possibly my favourite song at the moment. I'm playing it non-stop. Final Fight, Lost in Time cover by Psylocke. We'll see you next month. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Alcohol, probably.
Yeah. I wish.